What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, it's time that I give some love to Dishonored. So let me walk you through this story. We're looking back at Dishonored today, and I have quite the arc with this game. So when this game first came out, I didn't like it. And for the longest time, this has been one of my greatest, I believe this, one of my greatest gaming sins is never really giving Dishonored the time of day, just kind of accepting that I didn't like it and moving on and never vowing to kind of return. You know, modern day Alex, like January 2020 on, is a very, I really believe, different kind of gamer than what I was before then. A lot of games that probably didn't work for me back then, I do think would work for me now. It's not doing it for clicks. It's not doing it to like be more popular. It's sincerely giving these games a little bit more time of day. So when this game first came out, I don't even know if I bought it. I know for a fact I played it. My cousin had it, and this has always been a thing between him and I. He loves it. He absolutely loves the games, and I would always joke with him because I never really did. And I would play it on his PlayStation at our grandmother's. I distinctly remember some parts of this game, specifically the party. So when it's like the masquerade ball and you dress up and you go in, and that's an incredible, we'll get there as this video goes on. What a mission design. And I remember playing it and completely failing at it back then. For whatever reason, I don't even know what the reason actually is. It may be the stealth. I'm horrible with stealth. Generally, how stealth works for me is I like to go into something being stealthy. This could be Metal Gear, this could be Dishonored, this could be anything. I go in stealthy, I do pretty okay, and then something tragic happens where I make one fatal flaw, and then the rest of that mission just becomes an outright fight. To be honest, that kind of did happen this time playing Dishonored, but long story short, I mean, I do like to make these videos longer, but I played it again. Okay, I just beat it. I just beat the 2 DLCs yesterday when I'm recording this. I beat the game a few days before that, and I do like it a lot. I would struggle with the word love, although you could maybe toss that around, but I very much so like the game more than I did in the past. And what even brought this on, obviously, was Redfall. Now, I believe it wasn't the makers of Dishonored, like that exact team, that made Redfall, but it's still, you know, Arcane in general. And I was thinking, okay, well, Redfall, in terms of like the world building, how they tell a story, mission design, it's not there. It's just absolutely not there with Redfall, but I heard so much, and I remembered at least the levels being quite cool in Dishonored. I just never got into it. So I thought, all right, with Redfall out, let's go back to Dishonored and let's try it out. So let's talk about it modern day. Let's talk about the Alex that actually likes this game. The game's level design is a masterpiece. I would say if you do want to give this game an award, or if you want to give this game like a 10 out of 10 in anything, it should be the level design. I think, and here's the deal. This game is not all that big. Now, it's not that big in length, whether it's the main game you're talking about or the 2 DLCs. It's pretty short overall. I mean, maybe the base game is like 8 to 10 hours. The 2 DLCs, oh my God, took me maybe 3 hours each, but I would say maybe even a little bit less than that. So you're not talking about the biggest game. And even when you're talking about the levels themselves, they're not the biggest levels. Now, I love this. I think maybe the older I'm getting and the more old games that I'm replaying, I like a little bit of simplicity. I like levels that don't have to be 500 miles wide. Like, there is a place for that, and obviously people like that, but, you know, I've talked about that with open world games too. Give me a Dead Island 2 almost any day of the week. Dead Island 2 kind of holds your hand. It is way more linear than you would imagine it being in an open world. It's not one of these giant Assassin's Creed games that'll take you 150 hours and they're like absolutely massive. Again, like, you can enjoy that. I'm not saying you can't, but something in me is like, well, I like those games, but I love the games that are not. You know what I mean? I'll like them, but I love the games that are a little bit smaller, a little bit more focused. And I think that's what Dishonored is. It's a focused game. It's got its levels. It's very broken down where you know exactly what's happening, and you have an objective. And by doing the objective or getting to the objective, you may have side things you can do on the way and a couple different ways of getting there. There's not hundreds of ways to do it, but there's a couple. And to me, that's really all you need because they're detailed. What do you want to do? Do you want to sabotage things? Do you want to, and even for me, like, I didn't unlock all the powers. I kind of picked what I was good at, blinking, obviously, and the blink functionality in this game is absolutely phenomenal. So that was like the first thing for the base game and the DLCs that I would put my points, my money into, or technically they're runes, right? And I would just try to get away from people. So I would try to, okay, well, if I can blink up there, obviously when you upgrade it the second time, you can go like longer distances. I was like, all right, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to try to take these approaches. And again, the level designs make it, there's so many times where you're kind of looking around, you're saying, all right, how am I going to, approach this? Or like a door is locked and you say, well, oh, there's a little balcony here. Well, I wonder if I go up there. Okay, then what opens up when I do that? Okay, well, you go there. All right, well, now there's a window open. Or sometimes there's a door locked, but the roof, there's you can either break the glass to go in, or sometimes there's just kind of those windows, the top of things, and you can just kind of drop right in. It's so smart. It is so smart. And again, there's not too many of them. You're not talking about missions that are going to take you 18 hours each, right? They're condensed. Again, there's some side things you can do. You may know that there's like an informant. And so if you find that person, maybe they can give you a little bit more info. It's deep in that way versus it just being like absolutely massive. There's not too many areas to go into. There's not too many ways to get into it, but there's maybe 2, 3, 4 different ways. And again, depending on your powers, possession can change things up. I barely did that. Like I did the possession for like rats, but you can possess humans if you put your points towards that. I never even did. I don't even think I upgraded it to that point. So to be fair, even the things I'm talking about, there's more ways. There's more ways you can do it, and it's really fun. It's really detailed, and by doing this, by the way, you get that world building. I think the story of Dishonored is awesome. It's very simplistic, at least in the base of it, I would say. As it opens up, it gets a little bit more complicated, but I think the story is rather good. Corvo, for not talking, is still a pretty interesting, I think, character, and they kind of surround him with other interesting characters. I love Emily and all that. So you got a good cast, you got a good character, and then you got the world itself. I mentioned the masquerade. Each mission is so good, whether it's the environment that you're going into or the targets you're going into and how you do it. I'll tell you one quick story, and this kind of sums up. And this happened very early on when I was replaying Dishonored. I feel like this kind of paved the way for me to say, okay, I'm absolutely in. So the first main target you go after is the one where you have to, I think, break into some sort of like mansion. And what you can do is you can switch poison, right? So you get a side quest before you leave kind of your home base, and the person tells you, hey, I think it was like her uncle, and they say, okay, well, my uncle's not that bad of a person, and he's going to get poisoned, so if you would just like have that not happen. Something like that, right? So I'm going around, and in the beginning, I'm much more stealth-oriented, I think, than as it goes along, as it gets to the ending. So I'm going around, I'm really trying to avoid conflict, okay? I enter the room where this stuff is happening, or where, the drinks are about to be drunk, and I switch, okay? So, but when I go into the room, I'm looking around, I'm examining, you're reading notes, and the notes are really good world building. See, unlike Redfall's notes, yeah, they're everywhere, and that's kind of it when it comes to world building. I don't really think they're all that good. Dishonored, not only do they tell you a story through characters talking, kind of cutscenes in the way, but then also there are documents that you can read and kind of get more about the plague and how everybody's handling it and these different kind of groups, which I really, really love. Anyway, so I'd be reading these things and all that. Okay, so all of a sudden, I get an update, and this is one of the only times this actually happened. You get an update in the top right corner of your screen, and I think it was the update for that side mission to say, like, hey, switch the poisons. Like, if you're going to do it now. So when that thing went off, I had gone through a lot of the house. I had jumped into the room, and I was kind of looking around. As soon as the thing went off, I start to hear both of them talking from outside the door, and I was like, oh, holy God. So I switched the drinks, and I blink up to whatever, like a pipe or something, like above the room. And I did it. I blinked out of there as the door opened. So I don't know how much of that was perfect timing, but I'll tell you, it felt like perfect. It doesn't even matter if it was. No, I think actually a lot of it just happened. I think that I was slow. I was kind of taking my time. And then coincidentally, the AI, as they do, the AI moves all over the place, right? So if your target's in one room where they're not going to stay unless it's a certain situation, they won't stay there. Maybe they have a pattern. Maybe you can get them out by doing something else, right? The DLC, I think, does a good job at that. So, they're going to move around. Who knows where they were? When I was going through the mansion, all that stuff, I don't know where they were, when I was doing that. And I entered the room, and I did it literally just in time. If I waited 10 more seconds, they would have opened the door and walked in on me. And that, that would have, it obviously wouldn't have ended it, because as what happens later on in this game, I do fail a lot. I do get seen a lot, and I end up resorting into, fighting. So there's that situation that can happen, but it just works so perfectly. I told my wife, I think she was playing Breath of the Wild. She's been playing it a lot recently. And I was like, did you just see that? Because that was like a perfect gaming situation. Like, I wish because I didn't capture it. I was like, I wish I got that, because it felt so like everything lined up exactly how it was supposed to. And that was the first main, maybe I'm getting some of the details wrong, but that was the first main mission. I absolutely remember that. And I was like, okay, well, if this is what the rest of the game is going to be like, and it just keeps going. There are some really clever levels. Like I said, I mean, you can fight your way through it, and I did, partly as the game went on, but a lot of it is very clever, and you say, okay, well, I can do this, or I can do that. I'll free this group of prisoners, and they'll give me the combination to a safe for money. Like, there's just so much to do, all kind of condensed. Like I said, the Masquerade one, so good. Now, it completely fell apart for me. I don't really know why it fell apart for me, but because I did things so quietly in that Masquerade mission, and then once everything fell apart, then I actually realized how I could have done it even more safe, but I didn't see like a door that led downstairs. Like, that's another thing with this game, is like all these different pathways, you may not notice it. So like in the Masquerade, you can go up to the second floor through a little bit of trickery, which I did, and I did not get seen. Nobody saw me. I took out a lot of guards on the way, but nobody saw me. Made it up there. Well, what I didn't know is there was actually a door upstairs that would have led into that kind of private area where the target is at Bailey. I think her name's Bailey, where she would go upstairs, and that's when you can get her, and then you can bring her down into the basement. And you don't have to, though, right? And that's another thing with this game. If you don't want to kill some of them, you don't have to. You can incapacitate them for that mission specifically. You have to find which one is the real one, right? Because they all have different mask colors. And when you find the right one, well, actually, if you're just talking around to guess, one of them knows who you are, knows what you're doing, and says, well, give her to me. Instead of killing her, basically give her to me. I'll take her away, for free, and you won't have to ever worry about her. And I did that. So I never actually killed her. I just gave her, but you don't have to. You can do whatever you want. And that's the joy of this game. You're not always locked into doing it. Obviously, the ending changes. Well, number one, the last level changes depending on what you did through the rest of the game. I had high chaos, so that island was completely packed. Even how you have to deal with Emily at the end, the very, very end, that's different depending on what happens. And then also, if she dies, you get a different ending, right? So the game is really good. Like I want to make sure that's said. A couple other things I want to talk about is, okay, well, if you're not stealthing it, or maybe what are some of like the more weaknesses of it? Well, one of the things that I noticed, I think the enemies see you. I don't know if the enemies see you a little too easy. Like, I kept wanting to think that when playing. Okay, so when I was playing, and I would look around, and I was always quiet as I can humanly, be. And maybe that's just not enough. But as I was walking around, enemies see you quite easily, and not only do they see you easily, but their meter of like 1, 2, 3, and then it goes red, and that means they're gonna go after you now. That happened very quickly. Now, I guess I am stuck on, is that just a good stealth game? Like, if you get spotted, it's not some of these more brain-dead AI that we get in some modern games. And, I mean, this game's 2014. It's not that old, right? But some games out there, an enemy can see you, and they'll either completely ignore you because the AI is so bad, or it takes a really long time for that kind of awareness meter in the enemy to build up. Okay, so granted, because I'm bad at it, I would have preferred a little leeway. Even I believe in the easier difficulties, it doesn't change anything about that. It just changes like potions do more, and maybe I think maybe the easiest difficulty your health regenerates or something. But like it's more of that stuff, potion stuff, versus the enemies are, the enemies will still see you just as much as they always will, right? So that one, kind of again in the middle of, is that just a good game and a reasonable stealth game, or were they a little difficult? I will say, some of the movement, and not necessarily movement like blinking and stuff, that was okay. But some of the movement is a little janky. And I remember that when I first played it. So I had to, my cousin had to have let me play that Masquerade mission because I remember it. I remember trying it. I also remember failing and having to do like sword fighting. I like the sword fighting. I never did like it, but now I do. Very simplistic, right? Just strike them a couple times. If they go to attack you, just parry them right at the last second. You'll get a free, one-hit kind of kill. I like that. The thing that always made me mad playing it now, when the guard, any of them, I guess they're guards, whatever, when they would pull out their pistol, it's so annoying because a lot of them would dodge you. So if you strike a couple times, they would do this little turning thing, right? So they would do that. That was annoying. But then also so many of them would just like pull out their gun, right? And kind of do like a elongated stance and shoot. Now, one thing I do like with that is you can actually have them shoot each other. If you can kind of line them up straight, when they pull out their gun, they're locked. They're not going to like sidestep you, with their feet. They're going to stay exactly right there. So if they pull out their gun, just get another guy to go directly in front of you, and then they'll shoot them. And that's a cool little thing, I think, just overall. But if they pull out their gun and you want to attack them, so often the game will not recognize that. It won't register it. So they'll pull out their gun. You'll go up to them to strike them. It's way harder than you would think when they're standing there directly at you to hit them with your sword. A lot of times the game won't give you it. You have to either kind of go around. I think if you hit their back, you're more likely to hit them. But if they're just facing you with the gun and you strike, so often the game will not register that as a hit. And then you either have to kind of sidestep them yourselves, or you're going to get shot. And so some of that jankiness is definitely there. Again, sometimes, I will say most times if I messed up or if I got caught or whatever, my fault. I'll blame myself. I do think sometimes it was the game's fault, so I like to kind of put that on the game. And then, the story's good. I don't think it's like phenomenal. I don't think there's any massive standout characters, but again, the game deserves so much praise, I think, for the level design. The level design is really where it's at, and I would say the world building. Whether it's, and again, this is why I wanted to play it versus Redfall, because I know this game has, okay, they talk to you, so you get it basically told directly to you. Okay, here's the objective, here's what's going on, here's who I am, here's who you are, right? So you get all that stuff set. And then, if you want more, which there is a lot more, you read. You read documents and you read all this stuff. And also they may tell stories. I think very early on in the game, I think you're maybe in a sewer and you find a man and a woman who I think died there together because of the plague. And you can find a note where they wrote to, whether it's to each other or they kind of just wrote like their last dying, like thought before they went. Just those extra added things. It can either expand to the story, or maybe it expands to your target. A lot of times it's that, right? So if you have a target and you enter their estate or wherever they're located, right, you can find a lot of documents that'll just kind of talk about them. They'll be talking to a staffer, or they'll be talking to Lord Regent, right? They'll be talking to somebody. Just get a little bit more background. You don't need it. The game works either or. I think you could probably read stuff and be satisfied. You could watch the cutscenes or whatever and be satisfied, or you could do both. And I think the game serves that really well. So this is a very, very, I struggle to say love. I know this game, I think it got an 88 on Metacritic, so like very high. That's a very high score. I know it won multiple Game of the Year awards and stuff, and obviously it made Dishonored 2. You got 3 DLCs for this, but technically 2. One of them I think is like a trial stuff, right? So I did the 2 DLCs. It's all around an incredibly good game. I'm excited to play the second one. Oh, one thing for those that have made it like 20 minutes in. So I said, I didn't like the first Dishonored when it came out. I don't remember if I ever played 2. I did, however, play Prey, and I actually really loved Prey. I think I played it once, and played a little bit, didn't like it, then gave it a second chance, played through the whole thing, and really did love it. So something with their games, maybe Redfall 2, something with their games, I don't like it upon like first go attempt at it, let's say, and then I go back to it, and all of a sudden I can get in. But that's twice, because I remember that. Dishonored, I definitely didn't like, and I just never wanted to give it a chance. Prey, I remember playing it and didn't really jive with it, but I either went back or I just kept going. And I think Prey is one of the better, if not the best game they made. I'd say I like Prey more than Dishonored. I think I would say that. But so many people love Dishonored 2. A lot of people like Dishonored 2 more than Dishonored. So I'm going to give that a try. Eventually, we'll make a video on the channel, and we'll see what I think. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.